In 1932, there's an Army sergeant named Walter W. Waters, and he served in World War One. He's a veteran. He's out, and the Great Depression has hit, and he can't get a job. He has no money, but he has this certificate that says that he was going to get money someday from the government. And he was frustrated because he and a bunch of other World War One vets all had these certificates. So he ends up going and gathering with a group of friends and deciding that they're going to walk to the Capitol and ask Congress to give them this money early because the money wasn't going to come to them until 1945. He gets a group of 400 people to walk with him, and they travel via train and walking across the country because he's in Portland, Oregon. So it gives him a long time to collect kind of a band of folks. And by the time he gets to the Capitol, there are thousands of veterans, as well as some veterans' wives and kids. And they're all going to go to Congress and ask for this money because they all have these certificates saying that they should be getting thousands of dollars down the road, but not right now. And they need the money like right now because it's the Great Depression. This is kind of an escalating thing. They create this kind of tent city. Now, tent cities were popping up all over the place during the Great Depression, but this particular tent city was one of the neatest, tidiest little Hoovervilles you've ever seen because it was run by all these World War One vets, right? They were not trying to make a ruckus. They were not trying to make a mess. It was neat and tidy. It was organized. It had a Salvation Army based library. It had a little miniature post office. They immediately, when they started this little tent city, they like dug the latrines and they kept the roads nice and they made sure that everybody that was there had um, one of these certificates that said that they were going to get money for their World War One service. And it was a town of like up to 30,000 people living in this little town near the Capitol. On June 17th of 1932, Congress votes and they vote that they're not going to give them any of this money ahead of time. They don't have another solution. Now, up until now, everybody's been chill, but this begins kind of the unraveling. Um, First, they have a conflict with the police, and two of the World War II vets are um, you know, injured and then pass away because of their injuries by the police. And instead of seeing this as an opportunity to slow things down a bit, what happens next is that they send in the current U.S. military into this Hooverville. They send it first into the one next to it, which isn't actually all vets, but things escalate there, and they send the military into uh, this encampment full of bonus army folks, and try to and then successfully do roust them out of there. Um, there's one casualty during that as well. This is 1932. The following year, they do this again. Hoover loses the election because of this, pretty much. And the next year, they come back and they ask Congress again. This time, Roosevelt's in office. Roosevelt handles it very differently. He is still opposed to giving them the money, right? This is a time when the government still had to kind of work on a even ledger, and they couldn't just magically make money appear. But what he did do is instead of sending the police and then the military on them, he sent uh, he made like 40 makeshift kitchens that like popped up as little tent kitchens that served them breakfast, lunch, and dinner. He had buses taking them back and forth between the encampment and the Capitol where they were demonstrating. Um, he made sure that they were being taken care of. And what happened then is they actually still didn't get the cash, but they did end up receiving permission to have 25,000 World War II or World War I vets participate in the CCC. So the CCC was generally only open to men who were not married and didn't have kids. And he opened up 25,000 slots for the CCC for those guys, saying that they could participate. So up until World War One, the way that they had generally compensated folks for being in the military was with land. And people who had served in foreign wars Revolutionary War onward, were often rewarded with a little bit of money and a lot of land. And this was this major war with a ton of participants, and they did not have the money to actually compensate, right? And this is in a time and place where the money had to kind of balance out. They weren't running on these giant deficits. And so they had this problem. And what they did to solve this problem was that they promised these guys that they would pay them, but that they would pay them 20 years down the line. So they gave them these certificates that was based on how many days they had spent local and how many days they had spent overseas. Um, and then if it was under $50, they just wrote them a check. And if it was over $50, they gave them a certificate and said that they could cash out a loan for up to 22%. But otherwise, they had to wait until 20 years down the line and they would receive their money with interest at that time. The US government had a plan to put money back during this process. And that was okay. It wasn't great, people didn't like it, but it was okay until the Great Depression hit. And when the Great Depression hit, suddenly we had thousands of World War I veterans who had a piece of paper saying they had a lot of money and their plates were empty. And that's where we get the bonus army and all of the frustration surrounding it. One of the things about the bonus army was that it was absolute classic protest, right? But it was one of the situations where we see the US military going up against protesters. But in this case, it was so publicly obvious that the sentiment was on the side of the bonus army. The sentiment was on the side of all these World War I vets who were hungry and asking for what was rightfully theirs. And it was a major problem to have the police and then the military come in. But it mostly seems to have cost Hoover because, like, Patton and Eisenhower and all these guys were involved in the military movement towards the bonus army. That, I mean, obviously it didn't impact Eisenhower that much to have been involved, but Hoover took a major loss and lost that election because of his handling and part of the bonus army and the protests surrounding that.